Needed to. When we keep going and going and going, we start to worry. And one of my mind's favorite hobbies is worrying. It loves doing that. I don't know why. I don't know where it got that idea, but it loves to worry. And the Bible actually says 365 times, do not be afraid. So every single day we have a personal reminder to not be afraid. Even on leap year, we can just repeat one or something. But it's really, really important to know that we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to worry because God's got it. I was on the way to Waukesha with some friends, and one of them was actually Sophie, who preached a couple of weeks ago. And we ended up lost, and Sophie said, if we're in help, let's start now. And so whenever I start to worry, I always think about that. Worrying is not going to help. It's not going to get me anywhere. So let's just not go there. I have a verse, and it's Luke 12:22 through 26. Then Jesus said to his disciples, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothes. Consider the ravens. They do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable are you than the birds? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Sometimes we think that we should control our lives, but how many of you know that when we take control of our own lives, that it doesn't go how we want to go? It's gonna fail automatically, but when God's in control, he never fails. He never will fail. And I actually had the opportunity last year, like a year ago today, that I got to go to City on a Hill. And if you've ever been there, you would know that there's a lot of worries that come into your head. If you ask anyone that went on the trip, you would know that there's a lot of worries, but something that the trip leader said was, this is a missions trip, not a questions trip. And I think sometimes we go through life and we question every little thing. Like, we question God, why are you doing this? Why am I going here? Why can't I do what I want to do? But we have one mission. He called us to do this one thing. And we have to trust that. And I know trust is hard. I struggle with it, but trusting him is the best way to go. And it diminishes any worries. Because worrying wastes time. We should be more like the ravens and be free knowing that there is nothing to worry about. Because it doesn't help, and it suffocates us very easily. The next one is, you have a soul, be careful with it. We go through life meeting many different people. In fact, the average person meets 80,316 new people in their lifetime. That's a lot of people. But some of those people will be the cashier at Target or the waitress at Pizza Ranch. But some of those people are going to be your friends, your family, your husband, your wife, who stick with you through some of the highest highs and some of the lowest lows. But unfortunately, there are people that are fake. And their only goal in life is to bring us down, to walk all over us and tell us that we aren't enough. It's gardening season. My family actually just started their garden yesterday. And when we're planting seeds, we have to put the seed in the ground first. And then with some assistance of the sun, the water, and the healthy soil around it, it can grow as tall as a sequoia tree or as small as a clover. But what they both had in common is that they grew from the bottom. Maybe that's what we need. Maybe we need to change our perspective. Maybe we need to be pushed into the ground first and look up to to the Son, the Holy Spirit, and God that's all surrounding us. Fake friends create real opportunities for growth. The storms and hardships that we face are meant to strengthen us, not bring us down. Maybe God put that person in your life to grow your faith. He didn't put that person in your life to weaken your faith. That wouldn't make sense. The next one is, if you are strong, be a protector. If you are smart, be a humble influencer. Strength and intelligence can be weapons, so do not wield them against the weak. That makes you a bully. Be bigger than that. I like this rule because it illustrates the strengths and gifts that God has given us. All of us have strengths and weaknesses. Some of us are gifted in music. Some of us are gifted in sports. Some of us are gifted in art. And we need to respect that about others. But the thing that we lose respect in is weaknesses. We start to judge people for something they can't even control. We judge people based on their weaknesses. As I said before, I went to City on the Hill, and we were walking downtown Milwaukee, and the president was actually speaking, and we saw like his helicopter up in the sky, and there was people like all around, and they were like formally dressed up. They were in suits and ties and dresses, just looking all fancy. And then there's us who had old shirts on, old shoes on. Most of us didn't have socks on, and we were sweaty. We haven't showered in a while, and the looks that those people that were dressed up gave us were disgusting. Like, I have a cat, so she judges me, like, her judgmental looks, but I have never seen, like, that much judgment before. It was just disgusting. And it didn't bother me as a person, but it broke my heart for the people that are judged like that all of the time, that are judged for things they can't control. And it also broke my heart for people that I've judged before. And it really changed my perspective on judging people, because you need to be bigger than that, because that makes you a bully. Matthew 7:1-2 says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured." I remember one time I was in the car with my dad, and I don't know where we were going, but I remember him saying that he doesn't look at people when he drives past them, like if they're going slow or like cut them off or something. He doesn't look at them because he knows he's going to judge them. And that's one of the inspirational things I've taken away from him. But I think it's really important, and I've started to use it in my life, where if I know I'm going to judge someone, I'm going to immediately stop doing whatever I'm doing, so that I don't judge the person. You might have heard this story in Mark 5:24-34. I'm just going to summarize it because it's kind of long. But it's about a woman in a large crowd that has been bleeding for 12 years. She thought that if she touched Jesus' clothes, that she would be healed. But everyone around her said, "Don't bother, you're not important, he's not going to stop for you," because he was on the way to the leader of the synagogue's daughter, who was basically dead. And but the woman didn't care. She still reached out and touched Jesus' cloak, and Jesus felt that, and he stopped. And even the disciples were like, "No, let's keep going. She doesn't matter. We're just gonna keep going. We have more important things to go to." But then Jesus found her and said, "Daughter, your faith has healed you." The people thought the entitled were important, but God knew the woman was valuable. There's a difference between thinking and knowing. We think we know everything about everyone, but we don't. We think we know exactly what everyone's facing, and we try and put them in a group with that. We don't even take the time to have a conversation with them or even know their name, but we still associate a problem with them because we hear gossip, and we gossip about other people, and we judge other people before we even take the time to show the person love. Which kind of ties into the next one is, it doesn't matter what it is, earn it. A good deed, reach out to someone in pain, be of service, it feels good, and it's good for your soul. If I would have wrote this, that I would have just kept it as reach out to someone in pain. But I didn't, but that's what I'm going to talk about anyway. So, I think that's one of the most important things that you can do for someone is to reach out to them when they're in pain. 2018 wasn't the most peaceful year of my life, I guess. There was definitely some highs, but there were some lows that I've never faced before. And it definitely grew my faith. And I found out that 2 people I knew had committed suicide. And both of them were attending high school. And when I found out about both of these, it was on a Wednesday. And Wednesday is youth group, so I had to go to youth group and put as many masks on as I wanted because I thought that was comforting. But I'm sorry to burst not only mine, but your comfort bubble. You can't hide from God. You can't put as many masks as you want on and hide from Him. It just doesn't work, and you're wasting time doing that. I really like music. It's definitely something that I have used to grow my faith and just worship God. I really like the band For King and Country, and if you've heard of them, they're coming to Life Fest again. But they came with a song called God Only Knows, and it's off of their newest album, and I got notifications when it came out because I signed up for that. And so I got the notification on July 26th. And some of the lyrics are, God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows the real you. There's a kind of love that God only knows. And as I said, it was released on July 26th, and that's when I found out that one of the students that I knew had taken their own life. And now I know that it was accidental, but it's still part of my testimony, and it's still a part of the reason why I want to stand up here and share and preach what I feel God's called me to preach on. But the lyric that is sung throughout the song is, there's a kind of love that God only knows. And I remember being here and the leaders telling me, and we were kind of talking, and we were saying, what could we have done to prevent this? What could we have done to maybe stop this? But as I was listening to this song that night, I was thinking that there's nothing humanly possible we can do. The only thing that we can do is show people God's love. But even that, there's a kind of love that God only knows. And when we try and preach the word to them, we try and let them accept Jesus, that's when we can try and let God's love in. In Luke 6:7-11, it says, the Pharisees and teachers of the law were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus. So they watched him closely to see if he would heal on the Sabbath. But Jesus knew what they were thinking and said to the man with the shriveled hand, get up and stand in front of everyone. So he got up and stood there. Then Jesus said to them, I ask you, which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to destroy it? He looked around at them all and then said to the man, stretch out your hand. He did so, and his hand was completely restored. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law were furious and began to discuss with one another what they might do to Jesus. Unlike humans, Jesus doesn't take a break from the real world. He is always there, no matter what. You can't get rid of him. Whether someone is your best friend and you met them yesterday, it's really important to reach out to them and show them God's love and just talk to them. Just let them talk to you and just listen to what they have to say. As I said, there was 2 people. One of them actually went to my high school, but I didn't really talk to him, and the last time I did was 8th grade. And the guidance counselors came in and were like doing job interviews, because that's like when you start getting into like fast food kind of job interviews. And so like he was just telling me about himself and about his family and everything. As he was going on and on and on, I was listening to him, and I found out that he had no one at home that he could talk to, and just sitting there and just listening is one of the most important things you can do. Sometimes talking isn't something that you can do. Sometimes listening is really showing God's love. People put up masks, but the only way that you can bring them down is through God's love, because He's the only one that's going to find you. He's the only one that can restore you. And although I said that I didn't talk to him a bunch, what really got me is that there's a lady that came up to me the Sunday before, and I maybe talked to her once or twice. It was more of like, hi, how are you kind of thing, and then just go like a little small talk. But she was talking to me, and she was asking me what school I went to and how like her son wasn't going to go there because it was a really big school. And then what she said next was what really got me, and it was, I feel you have to be a light in your school this week. And I was like, okay, like, you do you. I know what I'm doing. I don't think you know. Like, I'm doing what I think is enough. But it wasn't. The next day, which was Monday, I got a notification for the verse of the day from the Bible app. And I usually have it on the Message Bible because I get up at 6 a.m. and that's the most I can comprehend. So I'm just like, it's better than nothing. So, and I've looked at like other versions, which is like NIV, and it's much different, but God knew that this was the one that I needed, and it was Matthew 11:15. Are you listening to me? Really listening? If that's not straightforward enough, I don't know what is. I was like, I know what I'm doing, God. Like, you don't know. Never say that to God. Like, you're just, no. And we ask God all the time, why aren't you answering my prayers? Maybe He is, but you're not listening. Are you really listening? Sometimes you have to question your own self. Am I actually listening? And when we aren't listening all that much, we start to complain. We complain to others. I've heard it, I've done it, and we complain a lot. We complain, why am I in this situation? Why is this not going right? Why don't I have this? Are you listening more than you're complaining? Are you praying more than you're complaining? It's called a conversation with God because at one point you have to listen. This may be hard to believe, but I talk a lot to God, like a lot. And I don't really like listening. It's not one of my strong suits, but I definitely know that personally I have to get better at that. And I know it's not going to help if I'm complaining constantly for me to get better at that. The next one is God is real. God loves you. God wants the best for you. Believe that. I do. And this rule was the most controversial because of the world these days. But what the world doesn't know is that the more broken they get, the more they're indirectly calling out for God to come save them. And although this rule is simple, we doubt it. I've doubted it. I'm sure some of you have doubted it as well. And I know that it's easier said than done, but when we have doubts, we need to look to the Lord, because that's the only way that we're going to get answers is through His Word and through what He tells us. And we need to accept Him. When we look to Him and we accept Him, we have all of the fruits of the Spirit, which include love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And we all need those. The next one is learn to pray. It's easy, and it's so good for your soul. This rule is very straightforward, but prayer can be intimidating. It really is. I'm intimidated by it sometimes, because you hear pastors come up here and they can pray in front of all these people, but then you get home and you're like, oh, okay. But it's intimidating because we compare ourselves to other people. God doesn't want to hear what someone else has to say out of you. He wants to hear what you have to say to Him. I love being in the back with the kids. You've probably seen me back there. And when we're teaching them about prayer, we refer to God as their best friend. And although that seems childish, I think it really helps us grasp the fact that we can talk to God whenever. We can talk to our best friend for 3 hours, but sometimes it's hard to talk to God for even 1 minute. And I know I've been there, but that's sometimes the only way that we can grasp it is trying to put a human adjective on Him, even though He's not, because He's the friend that sticks closer than a brother. This last point is nobody is perfect. People tell you that you're perfect just the way you are. You are not. You are imperfect. You always will be, but there's a powerful force that designed you that way. And if you're willing to accept that, you will have grace. And grace is a gift. Like the freedom that we enjoy in this country, that grace is paid for with somebody else's blood. Do not forget that. Don't ever take that for granted. This rule is my favorite because not only does it teach you that to earn all things and that nobody's perfect, but I think what's really important is that it says that nobody's perfect, because we compare ourselves to people that seem perfect when they're not. I love how Pastor Stephen Furtick says it. The reason we struggle with insecurities is because we compare our behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. I love that so much, because we see ourselves who are in the middle of a breakdown, that are not perfect, but then we see other people that have edited their entire lives, and we start comparing our behind the scenes to their highlight reel. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to attest and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will." The only thing perfect is God. We are not perfect. He will always be perfect. His will is always perfect. And sometimes we start to conform to the people that seem perfect. But don't. Be your own self, because God doesn't bless who you pretend to be. He's not going to try and bless the person that, if I'm trying to be Chris Pratt, He's not going to want to bless Chris Pratt Rachel. He's going to want to bless me, because He made everyone fearfully and wonderfully made. And that's what the Bible says, and that's His word. And as I close here, I have this little statistic, and it's humans have anywhere from 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day. What's astonishing about that is 80% of them are negative. 48,000 to 64,000 thoughts a day are negative. I'm sure some of us have already had some of those thoughts this morning. Those thoughts are not from God. Those thoughts are from the devil attacking us, because nobody attacks what isn't valuable. You are valuable. If a thief came into your house, they're not going to steal a paperclip on their floor. They're gonna want to steal a TV, for example. They're not going to want to attack what isn't valuable. He likes to use your insecurities to attack you, but these insecurities should not define you. You shouldn't let them define your life, because you are more valuable than you think you are. You are more valuable than what other people say you are. You are who God says you are. And if you don't believe that, then go into His Word, because He says exactly who you are. Remember that you are valuable, you are loved. Don't ever take that for granted.
Hey, thanks for watching our message today. If you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe below so you'll be updated on the latest messages as they're loaded. You can also give us a thumbs up and let us know how we're doing in the comments section. Thanks again for watching us, and have a great day.